South Shore residents were invited to a meeting last month to discuss the new proposed flood maps for Plymouth County. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, introduced the new maps that depict expected flood risk areas, explained to residents and business owners how their property would be affected, and spoke about potential insurance rates and how that would change. All area residents are encouraged to participate in the public comment period by visiting floodsmart.gov or call the number below to learn more about the proposed maps and express questions and concerns. Once the public comment period is ended, the maps are expected to be adopted along with the new insurance rates. PACTV Community News was at the meeting.
Well, tonight is a public outreach meeting. Basically, it's an opportunity for people to meet with some of the FEMA subject matter experts. We have brought access to the proposed maps. People can come in first and they can check to see where they are on the new proposed maps. They can get some assistance from the people that are very familiar with the mapping. Then in addition, we have people like myself. A lot of people already know where they are on the mapping but have insurance questions. What are the insurance implications of being remapped into a high hazard flood zone? And we have the Bigot Waters law that came into effect last year that reformed the flood program. So a lot of people have questions. They know they're already in the high hazard flood zone, but they want to know what the implications are for them in the future for their insurance premiums. I would say the first thing that people should do is find out what is their current flood zone that they're in, and then by attending meetings like this, or quite a few of the communities have these proposed maps are online and are accessible, find out where you are going to be with the new maps. One of the reasons I say that is because if on the current maps you are not in a high hazard flood zone, then you do have the opportunity to buy insurance in that zone, which would qualify you for a preferred policy where the premiums are very low, and that would the policy will stay in effect for a full 12 months. And knowing that this was your first time being mapped into a high hazard flood zone, besides getting that preferred policy right now, it also may qualify you for an additional year of preferred before you would have to deal with elevation certificates and things that tend to drive premiums up. They've been trying to reform the National Flood Insurance Program for several years now. It started before Sandy. The deficit of the program had risen. I believe now with the results in for Sandy that it was up $25 billion. Now they basically have to go to the Treasury. What money we don't have in premiums gets borrowed at a low interest rate, and then the claims get paid. So the concern of Congress was that before they would renew the program for an additional 5 years, and this happened last July, they wanted to reform the program so that they could do something about going forward, that we would be more fiscally sound.
On this side of the road?
On the riverside, yep.
Most all of that is in the flood zone.
Yeah, the mapping that's going on it's coincidental that it's going on the same time as Bigot Waters haven't been passed. Even if the maps weren't being revised, the coastal maps now, the mandate from Bigot Waters to FEMA was that, we have to identify the policies that are not paying what we would call the full actuarial premium. So in other words, they're paying less premium than they should. So we call that subsidizing of premium. So the Bigot Waters Reform Act was a mandate to start to phase those premiums that weren't being charged back into the program. So if you have an existing policy, you would starting with October 1st of this year, you would start to see some additional rate increase.
So there are two main components that changed. One is the inclusion of a term called wave setup, and the other is a revision in the way we calculate wave run-up, which is the way the wave energy interacts with vertical or slope structures, like a seawall or a rocky bluff. The revised run-up approach takes the old methodology and essentially multiplies it by 2.2. So those elevations are increasing somewhat substantially. Sometimes we get architects and engineers that attend these meetings. They may be working with someone who bought a property that's going to develop it, and they may want to more understand the science behind the maps and how that impacts the property. So the program has been in place for many, many years, since the late 1960s, early 1970s. So just what's different now is with this new mapping update, because of those different modeling approaches that we just discussed, some of the floodplains, the 1% annual chance floodplain, have moved landward. And that tends to happen in marshy areas, so flat topographic areas. And along those sloped profiles, the base flood elevations have increased substantially. So the developer, the architect, would have to take those components into consideration when designing the structure to make sure that they're above the flood elevation. Your insurance agent will use your particular structure elevation to determine your category of risk. So if you have a basement and you're 8 feet below that flood elevation, your premium, you're much more at risk than somebody who's elevated above the flood elevation, and your premium is going to reflect that risk. There is more current science and different modeling approaches that went into account for this study. Overall, it's much more precise than the currently effective studies, but we encourage property owners to take a look at these maps to find out if their zone is changing. If it is, reach out to their insurance agent and see what that means for them. There is a 90-day comment and appeal period that's ongoing. It does end in mid-October. So we would just urge people to take a look as quickly as they can.